Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast. I'm Stephanie Ricca with CoStar News, as always, here with STR's Isaac Collazo and CoStar's Jan Freitag. Hi, guys.
Hello,
Happy
Steph.
Freitag.
Happy summer. It's
It
summertime.
is. Yes, long weekend ahead.
Yes, it is. So we are approaching Memorial Day weekend here in the States, which is the unofficial kickoff to summer. And I know that Isaac is ready because he threatened this morning to wear an Aloha shirt and
Yep.
flip-flops.
Yep. And shorts.
So maybe listeners, dare I say, it's a good thing that you can't see us every month and only for some of our special episodes. You just feel free to imagine Isaac in his
Please
Aloha
do not.
Exactly.
shirt.
And my baseball cap and my sunglasses.
Right. See,
So-
it's, you know what? I really like that attitude. And I am hoping that the sunny skies are similarly reflected in the hotel numbers, but we are not going to get to that just yet. So usually at this point in the episode, I recap a few current headlines. But since this is our final episode before World Cup kickoff,
Yes.
see, I learned to say kickoff right in how many months before kickoff. The headline really is World Cup. Guys, it's go time.
It is.
It's go time. So I want to start our conversation there before we get into April hotel performance update even. Now, Jan, you've been looking at occupancy on the books for the World Cup markets like all the time because this is now or never, right? What's the latest? Give us the highlights.
Yeah, because we're the data guys and gals. I have been looking at this every hour on the hour because we have been gotten a lot of calls from reporters from all over the world to talk about what do we see on the books. And it is so interesting to see how the sentiment oscillates or changes wildly over the last couple of months or weeks, dare I say. Late last year, when the first couple of conversations started, reporters were super excited and they were saying, so it's going to be 104 Super Bowls and it's going to be this amazing event. And I was like, well, let's just wait and look for the data, but let's just temper that a little bit. And now the exact opposite tenor is happening, that the reporters are calling and saying, nobody's coming to the United States. And I'm like, well, let's temper that a little bit. Let's look at the data. So the truth, of course, is somewhere in the middle, right? So it's not going to be 104 Super Bowls. But yeah, there's going to be a tremendous impact. And, we've talked about this before. We think the June early games may not be as attractive. So maybe there, the occupancies and room rate growth is not going to be as pronounced. But in July, for sure, when you get to the later round matches, the last 16 teams, the last 32 teams standing, yeah, we're going to have full stadiums. We're going to have, pretty healthy occupancies and rate growth. And Isaac and I have always maintained this is going to be a rate story. It's going to be an occupancy story a little bit, but really it's going to be a rate story. And just Exhibit A for that, I was just presenting some global data last week with the help of Isaac, and there's a chart, a couple of charts where he shows occupancy and ADR, and we just have Italy, for Q1. And the Italy Q1 occupancy is up a little bit, but really the story there is the room rate growth. And that's clearly an Olympic-induced rate hike. And that is exactly how we think about this. But we can put some data around this. We luckily have occupancy on the books for a couple of the major markets. And I'm just going to rattle off some numbers. But we have, for example, in Vancouver, this is as of May 20th, for the full range of the World Cup dates, the occupancy on the books is 41%. Now, last year at the same time, it was 56%. So the question is, how come it's so much lower? Part of it is that there's, of course, displacement, right? Corporate, Canadian Fortune, I don't know if it's Canadian Fortune 100 companies, but high-end Canadian companies are probably staying away from sending, their sales kickoff meeting or their all-team retreat. They're just avoiding those markets. The same is true for Vancouver. New York City, the occupancy on the books right now, 32%. Last year, same time, was 45%. I'm not super worried about these differences in the occupancies, just because I think there's going to be a lot of last minute pickup. Keep in mind, the data I'm talking about here is for the full range. And there are just a lot of games where we don't know who's playing. And as soon as we know who's playing, fans are going to kick into high gear. But just for giggles, there's another interesting data point here. So I looked at the data just for the lead-in, so the night before and the game night. And we track this for, I believe, 14 of the 16 markets. So we're going to play a game. You tell me what these markets have in common. So the top 5 occupancy markets are Vancouver, Guadalajara, Toronto, Mexico City, and Monterrey. What strikes you about the list of those 5 markets?
And this is for their first match?
This is for the lead-in, so the night before the games and the games, for all games in those markets.
They're non-US.
Games in those markets, and there's a common thread. Yeah, they're
non-US.
Isn't that interesting?
Monterrey, Mexico. Okay, yeah, non-US.
Isn't that interesting? We're not a political podcast. We're not going to make a political statement, but I think that is striking. So, anyhow,
to use a soccer term.
Oh gosh.
Point is, this is going to be a phenomenal event. We're going to see a little bit higher occupancies and likely higher rates. And the July data is going to be amazing. Isaac and I will look forward to talk about this. I mean, the data comes out Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, and he and I will study
We will be talking
intently,
about this.
And we will publish on this every week. The good news is we publish our data weekly. Super exciting, and I can't wait to see Germany go very far. So that's my World Cup comment.
Just a plug, you'll find all our analysis on a weekly basis on CoStar News, and then also on our respective LinkedIns, because we just published last week's results today. So you always can find what we're talking about. And yes, World Cup will be a big part of our analysis as it begins.
So much leading up to it. We've got our resident sports reporter, Trevor Simpson, doing all sorts of coverage and planning for podcasts as well. This is going to be, you know what? I feel like it should be sort of where we kind of style ourselves as sideline reporters, and we get in on the action and do like some, no,
color
they're
commentary.
looking at me like I'm crazy, listeners.
Well,
they
we
know
already have the headsets, so we just need the big puffy microphone, and then just stick it into somebody's face and say, "How was the game?"
Yes.
We'll have to wear coat and tie, because that's what sports reporters have.
Well, that's very true. Oh, we got to do that.
I would need a wardrobe budget. We've seen some of these NFL sideline reporter women who look amazing. So I'll get a wardrobe budget, and instead of sticking the microphone in the face of the players, it'll be the hotel general managers in the markets, right?
Exactly.
And say, "Hey, it's midway in the tournament. Where do things stand for you? Oh, guys, too bad we don't have a budget to be able to do that. But hey, you know what?
But
I appreciate the data."
Dear listener, if you're in market, and if you're a host market, or if you're a base camp market, and you're listening to the show, we would love to hear your comment in the comment section of this podcast, just to hear how it's going, how it's looking.
And to reiterate, I think what you said, Jan, about when you're looking at the data and the forward bookings pace, this is more of a revenue and ADR event than it will be an occupancy event based on history. So I do expect to see the revenue side pop. And if occupancy is flat to down, well, that will just go with what history showed us in 1994. So, and that's also going to be mostly, I think, on the high end. So I'm thinking luxury and upper upscales where you're going to see the benefits.
Yeah, we are staying away from making forward-looking rate predictions for a variety of reasons. So we are really looking at forward occupancy on the books. That is part of what drives this conversation. Is people ask us all the time, "Oh, are rates higher or lower?" And we're like, "Well, we can tell you what happened, but we're not in a position to tell you what could happen with pricing, because that opens a can of worms that we don't want to get into." But so that is probably also part of the conversation, that people pick individual hotels' room rates and are saying, "Wow, that room rate is $1,000 for that night." And I don't doubt that. but I don't know how much of that is noise and how much of that is trend.
Which is the hotel industry in general, right? We're very used to it, but it's kind of interesting to hear your perspective talking to so many other media sources and news outlets and folks all over the world who may not understand dynamic pricing and revenue management and occupancy and how all these things play together. So it's always interesting and I think a good learning experience to have those conversations because it's not super easy to understand on face value. But that's kind of the beauty of the hotel industry is that it's changing all the time. Those different factors, some that people can control, some that are out of their control. So
My favorite reporter story was that I did an interview in German with a German syndicator. And then it ended up in my little hometown newspaper. And my
yeah.
mother saw my name in print, and I was so excited.
So
She
I
was so
hope
excited.
it's up on her refrigerator.
You know it.
And when next time you go home, you can sign it.
Exactly.
God.
Well, it's been a great learning experience for me, and I'm excited for the next 2 months. Let's see where it goes.
Yep. Let's all cheer for Germany.
And now, listeners, it is time to dig back into our regularly scheduled programming, which is the April hotel performance numbers. And we need to ask the big question to Isaac. Are we still in a happy place? Have April showers brought May flowers?
My God, we've had like thunderstorms and deluge. So yes, we're gonna
Oh,
have just a heck of a lot of more flowers. At least look what I saw from this past week, definitely into May. But we're gonna talk April right now. But we're definitely gonna see
yes.
the same kind of trends in May based on the data we're seeing at the moment. So if we just jump into it, RevPAR for April was up 4.4%, completely blew my forecast where I had it at about 3. And it went even higher than I thought. So on my
He's
white
looking at his famous whiteboard,
right,
listeners.
there's all kinds of other stuff. I was gonna say another word, but there's a lot of stuff behind me. We're working through some process. But what that did is it moved the year-to-date number up 20 basis points to 4%. So remember a month ago was at 3.8, now we're at 4. So, I mean, again, much stronger than what I expected, but many of us expected. And I'll just comment, we've been talking to a lot of folks, and they were saying how May was gonna be weak. Again, I'm not seeing that right now. We're actually again, it's gonna blow my forecast in the wall here. It says May at 2%. You can just X that out. It's much higher than that based on everything I've seen. Going back to April, ADR, it's been an interesting change of pace. So ADR was up 2.8%. Year to date is 2.5%. This is the third month of more than 2% growth in that measure. And it accounted for most of the monthly and year to date RevPAR gain. And when I say mostly, it was about 60% of the RevPAR gain came from that ADR change.
Just
But
in April. Wow.
well, just for monthly and year to date for both.
Okay.
And then what's really interesting is, again, not interesting, but just to keep in mind, it's still below the year to date inflation of 3%. And you got to remember, April's inflation was at 3.8. So we're still having margin pressures, which we're going to talk about later in the show. But
That
again,
pesky inflation number keeps.
yeah, it's still not going away. And then occupancy is up 1% for the month, percentage point, should say. And the year to date went to 60.6% year to date. That's the second highest year to date occupancy since the end of the pandemic. So again, just putting some context that again, we're still seeing real momentum. And then if you go back pre-pandemic, we're about 2.3 percentage points lower than we were in 2019. But we're making headway. So it's like it's getting better, but we're still not where we were.
Mhm.
What has been driving a lot of this? We know it's ADR, but it's also demand. Demand was up 2%. Well, what I'm concerned about a little bit is if you look at the trend, February, March, April, it's a declining growth trend. It's still positive, but it's a declining growth trend.
But a
And we
little
think
less positive each month.
right. And so, and when I looked at for May with my estimations, it'll be a little lower in terms of the percentage growth than we saw in April. So say 2%, it's going to be under 2% for the month of May.
Can I just
But
jump in here
given,
real quick, Isaac? We normally don't talk about the absolute values, but I was just very curious about it. So I charted the difference in room demand. In February, we added 2.6 million rooms. In March, we added 2.8 million room nights. In April, we added 2.2 million room nights. So we added over 2 million room nights each month. And in terms of dollars so far this year, we're up almost $3 billion, $2.9 billion more than the first 4 months of last year. So we hardly ever talk about those big numbers because they're sort of hard to get your head around. But I mean, I have a friend who will remain nameless, but he keeps saying something's changing, and it's really
Who
something is
said
changing.
that?
I
I
don't know.
told you that in December. No,
Is your
no, he's
maybe
not
maybe
nameless.
you're the
His
friend,
name is
Isaac?
Isaac.
Maybe, yeah.
Unless you have another friend. If you have another friend, you got to let
No,
me know, because I might be really
have one
hurt.
friend. I only have one data friend. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Keep going.
That's okay, but that was good because that was on my notes too. Yes, year to date, we're up more than 8 million room nights versus a year ago. So again, this is pretty significant. And so, but what's also significant is April was the second month that we set a new monthly demand record. Remember, we did that in February. So February was the best February that
Yes.
STR has ever recorded. Now April is the best April that STR has ever recorded on a monthly basis. And again, year to date is also at a record high. And it tops last April year to date 2019 was the last year to date record for the April year to date timeframe. And we're
Okay.
over that by 408 million room nights. So just crazy. Is that right? That's right. So it's crazy.
So
It's
that
crazy.
means then that I know that there's no such thing as a typical or a normal year anymore, but April is usually a good demand month, like all things considered, throughout the sands of time.
It is, yeah, because again, it
Okay.
tends to be a good, well, it
Beginning
can
of the
be,
second quarter, you've got
it
some
just
visibility into the year for business travel.
It just depends, right? Because sometimes you do have Easter in April, so sometimes you get that,
Sure.
but it tends to be a group month. I mean, again,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
the Easter, March and April is where you're really starting to see all your group activity, so it just depends when Easter falls. Obviously, this year, Easter
Mhm.
was really early, April 5th, but again, it is, as you know, I track it by week and I forecast each week, and again, I've been missing my forecast on the positive side. And so, and even this past week, just the week ending May 8th, 16th, or yeah,
16.
16th, it was just totally different. The demand side is keeping with trend, but we're just seeing changes in ADR, just a lot of differences this year.
Hmm.
It's hard to explain. You almost we need charts. And since you can't see the charts, I would show you the charts and then you would understand. But without charts, it's hard to explain.
Listeners, I make them paint their pictures in words on this podcast.
Yeah.
These data folks just love their charts and their visualizations, but aren't we lucky to have Isaac and Jan who can paint the picture with words?
I hope we can. Well, I know Jan can paint very eloquently, and so sometimes I
Eloquent.
stumble on my own pictures, but we'll get there. So,
Well,
uh,
that's where it's been really useful to follow the monthly or the weekly data highlights. We run those in CoStar News. But gosh, everything changes.
everything changes. But again, it's been a great month. Just to give you some more detail, every class except economy was up in monthly RevPAR, ADR, and occupancy. Luxury continues to lead. It had a 7.5% RevPAR increase in the month of April, with a 5.9% lift in ADR. Upscale leads in room demand. Now that's different. In room demand, we're seeing the largest percentage of gains in upscale, and that's a significant chain scale. Upscale and upper mid-scale are the two largest branded ones, up 3.2% in demand. And that was the 3.2% increase was in the upscale side. And upscale demand has increased by over 3% in each of the last 3 months. Luxury,
Mm.
upper upscale, and upper mid-scale all had their highest April demand on record. So again, you start thinking about these records that we're setting. It's just crazy. Group demand was up 3.3% with 8.5 million group rooms sold. Highest group demand month of the year so far. So you were asking about that stuff. So
Mhm.
there you go. Now, again, it's still down compared to pre-COVID, but overall, this April ranked 9th in all-time group demand. And so I don't know when we started I don't remember when we started getting segmentation, but it's been a while. So it's going way back. Uh,
And
yes.
group, I know, had been looking a little bit different, and we've dug into that on different podcasts. Isaac, you've touched on that here a little bit. So that's always an interesting indicator to me, especially like we've talked about as the second quarter kicks off and you see more business and group, that because that's been that lagging piece.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, I mean, and we're starting to see. I mean, transient's been holding up very well because I have a chart that we use for the top 25 transient for luxury and upper upscale, and that's holding pretty steady. But what's changed is now the group side that we've seen that
mhm.
increase in groups. So that's driving some of these top 25 markets because 34 different markets had the highest April demand on record. There are
Wow.
174 markets in the US, 34 of them saw the highest. 5 of those were in the top 25, included
Ooh,
Atlanta, Boston, Nashville, San Diego, and Tampa. And Atlanta, San Diego, and Tampa were the top 3 group demand growth markets. So, I mean, the numbers, I can keep going on. We'll talk about year to date. Year to date, every class except mid-scale and economy was up in RevPAR, ADR, and occupancy. And the good news is mid-scale was down just a little bit on ADR. Luxury is still leading year to date as well, 7.3% RevPAR on 5.3% ADR.
ooh, okay.
Um, what's interesting is upscale demand growth in terms of its growth percentage is on pace to catch up with luxury. So, I mean, and then you got to think about upscale and upper mid-scale to me are the road warrior brands, right?
Yes.
And they're the ones that have seen real resurgence over the last 4 months. And that's what we're going to be watching very carefully as we continue the rest of the year is, hey, as we go back to, did something change? It sure does look like it. But that's the segments that we'll continue watching to make certain that the change is sticking. In terms of markets, 43 different markets had the highest year-to-date demand through April on record. Again, 5 of those in the top 25. So again, it's pretty broad-based, and that's what I
Yeah.
when I'm doing presentations with my data or with the data, not my data, our data. I wish it was my data. If it was my data, I don't know if I'd be here. I may be on an island. So
Well, you still have to interpret it. So yeah, you'd be here.
okay, I might be here, but if I so shout out to Randy Smith. So, uh, and then yeah, it's very widespread. So it's not just, and I think that's what I've been trying to get our message across. This is widespread. It's in a lot of markets. It's not just one sector. It's not just the top 25 markets. It's pretty widespread. That's important. I think and that's what tells us something kind of changed. We just don't know what. And so
I do think it'll be interesting too once so right now we're kicking off on official summer with Memorial Day here in the United States, but once we're at the back end of it after Labor Day this fall and we're looking back on the summer, I think it'll be really interesting to unpack the leisure trends because of course this summer we just kind of everybody thinks, oh, leisure is World Cup, but oh no, talk about displacement. I feel like the leisure travel demand is going to be spread all over the place this summer.
I agree with you. And this is April was the second month where we saw outbound travel decline. So that means that more people stayed in the US. So that could also be a very beneficial to the hotel industry. And then,
Mhm.
although we were seeing a slight trend up in international inbound, it was still negative, but it was less negative, but not, it really fell in April. So that we'll have to watch that one too. And speaking of global, why don't we look at the global numbers very quickly? Global RevPAR, excluding the US, fell 1.1% in April, and it was really due to 61% RevPAR decrease in the Gulf Cooperation Council countries due to the
Mhm.
war in Iran. So, and if you include the US, this is a new one because normally we took out the US because it made the globe look better or no, worse. Now, when you include the US, it makes the globe look better. So with US global RevPAR with GCC was up 0.4%. With the US and excluding the GCC, RevPAR was up 1.8% globally. So, excuse me. Without excluding the GCC, April global
Okay.
RevPAR was up 1.8%. Without the US, up 2.5% with it.
With US. Okay, so
Yeah.
the US is that rising tide there, which we haven't seen
in a while.
In a
And then
while.
standouts in the month included Spain, where RevPAR was up 10.3%, India 8.4%. Our friends in Canada were up 7.3%. And then others, China, France, and the Caribbean, were all up by more than 5%. And other than the GCC, what we've been watching a lot, Mexico was the next largest decliner, with RevPAR dropping 18%, mostly on ADR, which was down 14.8%. And when you unpack that, the ADR decline, as we saw in previous podcasts, was centered in the luxury and upper upscale classes, and to a lesser extent in upscale. Everyone else was seeing very limited ADR declines of 1% to 2% during the month. And it's interesting that monthly ADR has fallen by more than 9% in every month of this year, and occupancy has fallen for 6 months straight, but the last 3 have been more significant. And
Yes.
some of that could be a part of some of the fallout from some of the violence earlier this year.
Hmm.
And then overall, year-to-date, global RevPAR is doing, without the U.S., is up 2.9%, and with the U.S., 3.2%. And of course, Jan mentioned it, Italy still has the highest year-to-date number due to the Winter Olympics, RevPAR up 16.2%. And GCC and Mexico both have year-to-date RevPAR declines of 20% and 15% respectively.
Hmm.
And then finally, except for the UK and Germany, the key countries have all had year-to-date RevPAR growth of more than 3.5%. So most countries are doing rather well as well. And
Hmm.
again, there is this now, the Middle East and GCC countries particularly are the ones holding things back at the moment.
And it
But
shows how that shows up in hotel performance data, travel trend data, which at the time, when these war in the Middle East was starting in March, oh gosh, what's happening now right at this moment? But you both said, keep an eye on this over the coming months, because even if and when things are resolved, there's always going to be that tail.
I think that the Spain data is a clear indicator of substitution, that people do not go to the GCC, but instead
Hmm.
say, "Oh, let me
Yes.
go to the Mediterranean on the other side." Our friend Adam Sachs from Tourism Economics and Aaron Ryan, they have an interesting chart about prior unrest in the Middle East, and that there's a clear substitution into the states around the Mediterranean. And talk about substitution, I think you can draw a very clear relationship between Mexico down, Caribbean up. I think that we saw that in the spring break. I think we saw it in the Q1 data. I think we're still seeing that there's a perception that people don't feel safe in northern Mexico, rightly or wrongly, and that they're saying, "Oh, but I still want to go to a warm weather location." And I think the Caribbean clearly is the winner.
And we've had team covering Caribbean events the last couple weeks, the Alice Cala event in Miami, and a lot of folks there were saying the same.
thanks.
It's that displacement idea is, I just feel ideas and story ideas and data ideas turning around in my brain, because I feel like we're talking about that more than ever, and it is often a result of any sort of disruption, whether that be good or bad, whether it's displacement for events going to a city, having another big event, or as a result of war, or turning off tourism faucets. It just can be applied in so many different cases. It's
Yeah, and
interesting
if
to me.
you want to stretch that maybe a little bit, you could maybe make the argument that that deceleration in American outbound that Isaac talked about, that we see in the I-92 data, maybe that is just Americans saying, "Oh, maybe I don't want to go long haul. Is it safe? I don't want to connect through Dubai, but do I really want to be in Europe?" And by the way, airfare is so much more expensive. So, maybe maybe this is the summer of the road trip. Even though gas is $5 a gallon,
Ugh,
but it's still
yeah.
cheaper than a $2,500 airfare. And so I think it's possible that maybe we'll see some of that substitution of the Americans staying at home.
Even with gas prices, I mean, they're still predicting record travelers this year, right? So I saw that. And again, it's this, I think I heard this morning, I don't know, I didn't put this to memory, but it's the second highest gas prices for the Memorial Day weekend. So it's not the highest ever. I thought that's what I heard. I need to check on that. So please,
Yeah,
forgive me if I'm wrong. So,
I
and gas has historically never stop people from traveling. And I keep seeing things. We said in our forecast meeting, I still see events selling out, that people are still putting money out to do things. And again, my scope is very limited to music festivals, but they just keep selling out. I keep going, it's amazing. And they just didn't do that 3 years ago or 4 years ago pre-pandemic. They had stopped selling out. Now, or they were selling out very late, much closer to the event itself. Now they're selling out way in advance.
I was in
So,
Vegas Tuesday for the Expedia event, and on the way out on the plane, there were three different large events. It's ICSC, shopping centers, which had I think like 20,000 people, and Expedia had like 2,000 or so. And then apparently there was a confectionery and sweets convention as well. So
Wow, we're in the
yeah.
wrong industry.
that'd be great. I like
I
that.
know I'd be 800 pounds, but I think the point is just to say, wow, there Vegas was humming. The strip was
How did it
buzzing.
feel?
And
And when had you last been?
It's I went last year I forget, like last fall maybe. So it was definitely busy. I mean, we were at the Aria, which was just humming. The convention center was obviously full with people with
Hmm.
ICSC, and just the strip was very very active. I went to Sphere for the first time, which I can highly recommend, on Monday night. And I don't think it was meant to be sold out. Like they had sort of corralled people into like 7 different sections, and there weren't seats
Did you see
available
No
everywhere.
Doubt?
No doubt I saw Wizard of Oz. I saw the movie, which blew my mind. I'm a kind of jaded when it comes to this entertainment. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. It was
A jaded
absolutely,
German American.
totally unbelievable. I want to go again. I want to take my kids. It was so cool. And as a bonus, and this is sort of an inside baseball reference, but I caught the apple. That there's some point where they throw like these apples come raining down on the audience, and I caught one, and I'm so happy. And
Wait,
we can
real apples? Or
no,
like a
it's
no, but like
it's a
physical.
styrofoam app. Yes,
But it's a
when
physical
Dorothy,
thing, not like a
yes,
motion. Yeah.
yeah, when Dorothy
Oh
is like trying to
boy.
catch an apple, and the tree starts, shaking, your seat
Yes.
starts shaking, and then they open up on the top, and these apples come flying down.
Boy, I
I
hope they never screen Rocky Horror Picture Show at the
I know.
Sphere.
Yeah,
Ooh,
and you two
lots
didn't
of
throw
toast.
apples. I saw you two there. There were no apples. I caught nothing. Not
It
even a
was
teacher.
Anyhow, point
Lemons.
was the Sphere was active, and then we walked, which is sort of a hike, but we walked back to the hotel, and it was just jamming
Like normal.
everywhere. And we went, yeah,
Normal.
exactly, like normal. So, anyways, the
Given what
larger
yeah,
point is
it's
groups
good.
alive and well in Vegas this week.
I agree.
Anything, Isaac, we took a little bit of a turn there
I know.
from the
That's it.
April and May data, but anything else that you want to point out before we move on to our topic of the month?
No, I think, again, it just was a solid month, and again, it was above expectations. I think that was the most surprising thing that, I'm here working with the data, and again, I look at it by week, and we build our forecast on a weekly basis. We have 2 forecasts, I should, for all the listeners. We do have the forecast we publish, which is macroeconomic. We use tourism economics, my team, we're all part of it as we formulate the forecast using insights and data trends. But then on a weekly basis, I build what I call the back of the envelope forecast. And so every week, I have the next 4 weeks already built, and then I make a month and try to estimate where we're going to come in, and it just keeps surprising. Every time I think it's gonna, even when the downs are less down and the ups are more up, and you go, I don't get it, why? And so, but it's good. We're happy to be wrong.
Apples are falling from the sky.
The apples are falling on the sky, and the money hopefully is falling into
Exactly.
owners' pockets and things, even though we know margins are still under pressure.
And that, listeners, takes us to our topic of the month. Now, we've talked World Cup, we've talked April numbers, we've taken a couple sidebars into Las Vegas. But before we let you go today, we have one more topic on the agenda, and that is P&L. Isaac alluded to it just now. Of course, here at STR and CoStar, we track P&L data very closely. What are the numbers telling you Isaac.
Yeah, I'll go through that, but yes, we track it very closely. We have done so since the '90s. I think I have
Mhm.
a book from '95, and I think we even go beyond before that. But as many of you know, recently we launched the P&L benchmarking in the CoStar platform. So as a benchmark customer, you can now see this data in real time on a monthly basis. And so because of that, we've been redoing all the back end analytics and things. So what I'm going to give you is what I've been working with and some of the analysis I've been doing. And we're also going to have similar analysis if you're going to the HSMAI commercial strategy meeting, which used to be called the Rock, but I don't know what that's called. And
Yes,
I think it's
it's
it's a
commercial
commercial
week.
strategy.
Yep, I
Yep.
think.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. So
With
forgive me if I'm
apologies
wrong.
to our friends at HSMAI, yes, Commercial
Yeah.
Strategy Week.
Yeah, and so this is some of the stuff you'll be seeing there as well, but all graphically. So US room revenues were up 4.4% March year to date and resulted in a profit flow through, which is great, of 30%.
Okay.
Total revenues increased 5.2%, with more than half of that gain coming from rooms revenue. Now, F&B revenues were also up. They were up
Oh,
7.6%, but they only contributed 32% of the total gain in absolute revenues.
is
Now,
that
just quick
total F&B, like including banquets and catering?
correct, total
Okay.
F&B, correct. And keep in mind, this is the US total. Obviously, you'd see some different numbers for upper upscale and luxury in terms of their full contribution, but to the total revenue gains. When you unpack the expense side, most of the growth in those expenses were what we call the undistributed expenses, or for an easier term, the fixed cost. It was
Mhm.
A&G and utility. Yes, you could argue utilities are are kind of variable, but in this example, we're going to put them in the
Mhm.
fixed side because they're not attributed to a department within the hotel. What's also interesting is total labor costs rose 4.1% in the quarter, but all other non-labor costs rose 6.3%. So essentially, more than half of the expense gain, the absolute dollar change in expenses, came from non-labor
From
related.
non-labor, which usually
Right.
isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but labor's usually the number one.
Right, and it has been. And for
Mhm.
this, so that was a little bit of change. So that's just some top line for the US, but we also have top line globally. And so globally, among comparable hotels, here we're doing something a little different. We have to only use comparable hotels using constant USD and excluding the US. GOP margin eroded due mainly to lower F&B revenues and higher undistributed expenses. So total revenues fell 1.4% due to a 4.5% decrease in F&B revenues. Room revenues were up while other revenue departments were down, but significantly less so than the F&B revenues. So again,
That's
others were
interesting.
down. Yeah, it was, and I think I know why. And then global expenses fell 0.8%, which was less than the revenue decrease. Thus, the industry saw a flex variance of 38%,
Mm,
meaning actual results were 38% worse than what we'd expect, right? So when you do the whole flow and flex, I still
right.
so just different concepts, but again, what you have to know that the easiest way is revenues fell at a faster clip than expenses, so that really was profit.
Outside the US.
Yeah, yes, and it eroded that. So the margin went from 33% to 32.5% for hotels outside the US.
So are you gonna tell us the F&B cost?
Let
It
me Well, let me tell you
okay.
what drove the whole, revenue decrease and the F&B decrease. It really
Mm,
was Middle East and Africa.
yes, that was gonna be my
Yes,
guess, having
and
to
again,
do with
the war in Iran.
war, supply chain, movement
So
of goods around the world.
so if you exclude that region, the global industry without the US saw 42% flow through, with
Okay,
GOP
so
rising
performance there. Yeah,
4%
yeah.
on a total revenue gain of 3% and expense expansion of only 2.5%. So,
Mhm.
yes, there's just so much here. I mean, we can go every country. Again, we just did those big pieces, but
Right.
even the US, we could go by chain scale. Outside the US, we'd go by country
Mhm.
because every country is different. So we could then look at all the labor costs, but we have all that data. That's some of this is very top line of what's happening. So
Mhm. And
overall,
then, of
pretty good
course,
picture.
in, um, you know, 3 to 5 years, all of those mega gorgeous hotels in Dubai that have closed now for significant renovation will be really poised to take back a lot of market share, which is, that's what they're planning for. And looking ahead, I think it was just this week that, the kingdom announced some relief spending and support for hoteliers there. So that's been
What's good news, and this is just looking at the data on a weekly basis, but we are seeing occupancies creep up a little bit in UAE, and so I wrote about that
okay.
this week, and I don't remember what the occupancy was, but each week it's getting up a little better, and the declines are lessening. They're still negative, but we are starting to see some lessening those declines. But yeah, it'll be a long way before the full recovery, and again, the full recovery won't happen until obviously the war
Mhm.
is concluded. So
So what strikes me there is really how important it is to keep costs in check. And we always talk about CPI, but obviously the cost increases vary widely by line item. You talked about the labor cost part, you talked about the non labor cost part, like in healthcare, for example, in the US is such a big topic, insurance is such a big topic. So so number one, I'm so glad we have this data. So thank you for working very, very hard and spending your weekends cleaning this up and making this usable. Well, it was usable before, but make it more consumable for us. Number two, STR is leaning into this hard. And if you are a member of the Star family in the benchmarking tab, we're now allowing you to look at P&L data for your comp set, which is super interesting because the truth is when Isaac and Stephanie and I travel and we talk to owners and operators, they're saying, yeah, RevPAR, blah, blah, it's important, but really talk to me about my bottom line. And
Always.
and I am so glad that we now have the tools to make this very, very actionable. Isaac, of course, gives you the high level total US, but it's going to be so critical to look at this on a property and comp set basis.
yeah, I was with a client yesterday, and we're just giving him a P&L 101, and just so many people in our industry just don't know how to use this, and they were asking me questions, and I was like, "Well, this is how you would do it. This is what you would look at." Because we did the famous example of, "Hey, the bar closed at 11. Why wouldn't the hotel keep the bar open till 12 or 1?" Well, it's probably a cost issue, and if you were in
Mhm.
the hotel, you probably did the analysis because you know what your revenue stream is from 11 to 1 and what it's costing you in labor and everything else, and you just gotta work out the math. And so, it's really very interesting to look at that stuff and think it through that way.
And I feel like we could do an entire special episode just on F&B and
Yeah.
ancillary revenue.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we'll do that next time.
We have reached the conclusion of another episode of Tell Me More. And we close the episodes the same way every time. Who wants to start?
Either way. So, okay, I'll go.
Jan, give us,
So,
what is the industry like
You know how
right
I'm gonna
now?
end it, so might
exactly.
as well let there's no surprises
Apples
with
falling
mine.
from the sky?
Yeah.
Did we?
I went to Vegas, and I think
Did
the
you bet the company,
industry.
your
I
house,
did
or
not bet
anything?
the company, but we had so I gave a presentation in front of a lot of people, which always is very, sort of gets the adrenaline up and then back down. And then we had a lovely dinner with a bunch of industry contacts. Thank you to Expedia, and I was exhausted, but I was in a casino, and on the way to the elevator, of course, there are these, slot machines, and I'm a video poker guy, so I was like, okay, fine. So I put in $20
Wait,
into
wait, 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 wait. Hold the phone. Jan Freitag plays video
I
poker?
know, I know, that's
Oh,
a surprising to me as well. I'm
I
like,
love it. It is. Did you know it's the game that makes you addicted the fastest? They have done studies on this, and that game gets you more addicted than any other game. So that's why I'm glad I don't live in Vegas or near Vegas. Anyhow, so I
Anyhow,
put in $20 and I hit draw, and it does ding ding ding, and I win $200. And I was like, I am so tired and I am so
This is why
done.
Jan loves video poker.
So I hit checkout and I'm gone. And the hotel industry feels lucky. After 4 months of continued RevPAR acceleration, I feel like the industry, we're feeling lucky. That's my metaphor.
We're feeling lucky.
Lucky.
Oh, that was a really good one.
We learned so much.
The B plot, the sub storyline of this month's episode is that Jan plays video poker.
There
Isaac,
you
how
go.
can you top that?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top that. So I was always thinking my metaphor, which is always music based for all the listeners who know that already for the last 2 years or how many years we've been doing this. So I thought about Florence and the Machine, Dog Days Are Over. So I thought
Mm,
that's a
Yep.
good song. It's like, hey, the
dog
dog
days
days
are
are over.
done.
Yep.
But I think the other one that's getting me as I'm in the forecast mode, because we're a week and a half away from NYU and we're going to be presenting new forecasts. So we're still diligently working on it because we're still trying to figure this one out.
Wait,
There's a
wait, wait.
song.
Let us guess. Forecast? Is it It's Raining Men?
No, 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 God, no, please. God. No, we're
I'm
not gonna
sorry,
go there.
Isaac. Carry on.
Okay, have you heard of Gracie Adams?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, great. You've heard it, great, that's great. So she has a song came out in 2023. Where do we go now? And
Oh,
that's how I feel like as from a forecasting standpoint, where do we go now? So we have the World Cup, we have all this stuff. So I don't think you're gonna be surprised by our forecast, but we're still trying to do we tweak it even more? Do we tweak it down? We don't know. So that was my mindset after our forecast discussion earlier this week is where do we go now? And so
but if you connect, where do we go now with I'm feeling lucky? Somewhere in there, you get the sentiment of how we think about the forecast.
yeah. I think we're all feeling pretty good about summer. But again, the first test again, today is really the beginning of summer, right? This weekend, so that'll be the test, and we will be doing lots of analysis. How was this Memorial Day versus other Memorial Days when it's early, kind of early versus next year? Just FYI, listeners, next year it's the 31st of May. I think I saw
Oh,
that. It's the
and
last
it's
day
early
because
this year.
that's the last Monday because it's always the last Monday. So next year it goes back about a week, right? Kind of. So
Wow.
so
We need to make an Isaac app that gives you calendar shifts on demand.
it's called Copilot. So because I had to look it up yesterday because I don't know what I was doing, had nothing to do with the industry. And I was like, when's Memorial Day 2027? Why I was looking that up, or it's even this morning, and that's when
You
I
were
saw it.
planning
So
a trip, of
I was
course.
planning
And there's your
Yeah.
calendar shift
yeah,
Yeah.
info.
and so
Oh,
hopefully I got
well,
that right. I'm gonna look it up right now before we go. It's like, God, Lord, please, did I not get that one wrong? And so, yeah, May 31st is the last Monday in May of
well, then we will
2027.
advise you listeners to mark your calendars now. And thank you for sticking with us for another episode. This one I think was a fun one. Now, one quick note, we are going to meet at the IHIF NYU conference in early June, June 1st and 2nd this year, for a special episode to talk forecast, general middle of the year vibes, and, maybe to celebrate the anniversary of this podcast's origin story, right? It came together in its current form in a booth at Juniors while we were at the NYU conference.
At
So find
Juniors.
us.
That's
You need to get
So
a
right.
find
cheesecake with a
us in
candle
New
on it.
York.
Cheesecake
Maybe
with
we
candle.
will. I think we might need to do that. So find us in New York, June 1st and 2nd. Hope you all have a great month. Remember, look for us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, including now on YouTube. Find all the news about the global hotel industry at costar.com/hotel news. Follow these guys on LinkedIn and let us know what you want to hear about in future episodes. Thanks and see you next time.
Thank you.
See ya. Happy summer.
Happy summer.
I'm Terence Baker, News Editor, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I'm the host of The Upgrade, a CoStar News Hotels podcast for the EMEA region. In it, I discuss with special guests the pressures, challenges, joys and exhilaration that comes with managing, owning and developing hotels in our glorious multifaceted industry. Discovering the EMEA region from the scenic northern shores of Norway to heights of Table Mountain in South Africa, and most likely some chat about birdwatching, distance running, and the English Premiership. Join us wherever you find your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on other platforms.
This episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast, was recorded on May 22, 2026. The episode was edited by Sean McCracken. Find all hotel industry news at costar.com/hotel news. Thanks for listening.